Andy, we visited around this time last night, and it was at this point last night where John Calipari decided to sleep on the offer from Kentucky. You got a text from him today saying he was heading to Kentucky to accept the job. What happened between last night when he went to bed and today when you got that text?
Well, as you mentioned there, when I talked to R.C. Johnson tonight, the athletic director of Memphis, he said that Calipari was really wrestling with this throughout the course of the day because he knew that he had a tremendous team coming in next season in Memphis. And I talked to John about this countless times, how he really believed that next season he could win the national title. Even though Tyreke Evans potentially could leave, even though he was losing Robert Dozier and Antonio Anderson, the two seniors, he really believed that next season's team, with the recruits coming in, that he had a chance to win the national title. And the fact that he'd obviously built this national program sort of on the edge, not in the mainstream, very difficult for him to leave. And as R.C. said, he really believed that Calipari was wrestling with this throughout the course of the afternoon.
So, as has been made clear throughout the past couple of days, Calipari did it at Massachusetts, he did it at Memphis. Not hardly off-the-radar programs, Andy, but not a major Big Six program in terms of the conference affiliation. There is no bigger stage, no brighter spotlight, no more passionate fan base, as you have talked about throughout the day, than Kentucky. It seems like he was built for this, though. I can't imagine it's too big for Calipari. Can you?
No, I mean, he is the perfect hire for this school. Now, that he may have his detractors out there, and they will come out, but if they were looking for a CEO, someone who could handle, obviously, coaching on the court, who could win big, who could bring in big-time recruits, something that Billy Gillispie wasn't doing, and it was a criticism of Tubby Smith in his later years at Kentucky. Even though he was winning, it was the recruiting that knocked Smith. Do that, plus handle the boosters, the passionate and demanding fan base, and, of course, the media. A lot of times they don't care about the media, but at Kentucky they care about everything. And John Calipari can handle it all. I mean, he is that one sort of polarizing, electric, lightning rod kind of personality that can deal with everything coming at him, and the kind of person that really thrives within a storm. I mean, he handles chaos very well.
9:30 a.m. tomorrow, a press conference where Coach Cal will be introduced. And, Andy, there's been so much talk, and you brought it up, about that recruiting class, Xavier Henry, DeMarcus Cousins in the top 5 in everybody's lists. They were going to go to Memphis. All right, there are people that will say, oh, hey, maybe they could come along with him to Kentucky. But, Andy, explain why it's not that easy, because Kentucky's already filled up with scholarships.
That's right. Kentucky, you're allowed 13 scholarships in men's basketball. Kentucky only was losing one player in Jared Carter, a senior. But Billy Gillispie had already signed 3 players, including Daniel Orton, who's a top player that was coming there. So there was going to have to be some attrition on that roster, even if they didn't fire Gillispie. Now, with the 3 recruits coming in, and you've got likely DeMarcus Cousins trying to come there. Now, Xavier Henry may go to Kansas because that was a tough call for him, Kansas or Memphis. But you could have John Wall, who's out there as a top point guard. So I would say no matter what, it is going to be a very drastically different roster next season, and some of these scholarships, which are technically 1-year renewable, may not be renewed by the current new coach, John Calipari.
Andy, last thought as it relates to Memphis. You made the great point that John Calipari turned Memphis into a big deal. They sell that place out. It's a money maker. If you lose an Evans to the pros, if you lose these recruits who are not bound to their letter of intent now, what happens to Memphis? Well,
there's a lot of pressure on R.C. Johnson. And he did tell me tonight that Calipari obviously made this a much better job. They dwarf the Grizzlies. I mean, they are the team in the city of Memphis. And so now what he's got to do is, maybe he can't pay $3 million, but he's going to have to make this a big-time job offer to someone. And I can tell you that at the top of his list is Xavier's Sean Miller. I don't know if he can get him because he's in a similar situation. At USC's Tim Floyd. They're going to have to go for someone like that. That's why UTEP's Tony Barbee, who's just sort of starting his coaching career, was a former Memphis assistant, but doesn't have the pizzazz and hasn't won enough. I don't see, based on my sources, him having a shot at this job. Johnson's going to look for a big-time coach to keep this program in the elite.
Andy, great work. I know you've been on the blower all day. We appreciate your time and your work on the story.
Thank you, Scott.